While reading around the subject of Russia and Ukraine this week, I came across the story of the Potemkin Villages. A legend, dismissed as mostly fiction by modern historians, has 18th century Russian statesman Grigory Potemkin building phony villages along the banks of the Dnipro River just for effect, to create a useful illusion. His lover, Catherine the Great, and her foreign guests were due to sail down the river on a tour, and Potemkin, the story goes, wanted to give them an impressive show of a populous and thriving nation. As I say, the idea is largely dismissed now, but the term Potemkin Village has stuck and is still used today to describe the lengths to which the leaders of a failing, broken country might go to in order to create the illusion of success and prosperity when the truth is altogether different. I read about the idea and it occurs to me that here in Britain now we're actually living in a Potemkin village, invited by our leaders to populate a phony facade and pretend, or God help us, actually believe as if everything is fine. But nothing is fine. The fact is, the story they're telling us about this country of ours is almost entirely a con trick, persuasive only if you don't look too closely at the flimsy plasterboard truth of their creation. When it came to Potemkin villages, real or a myth, it was only outsiders who were to be fooled. They were just passing through after all. The crucial difference for us Brits is that the fakery all around us is not supposed to trick the tourists. Its most important function is to try and convince us, the tax-paying citizens, that all is well, when it most emphatically is not. Look at this poor old place and wonder at how much fakery has been erected. And remember all the time that we're also taxed right up the wazoo for our continued occupation of the shoddy reality some of us see around us. There's so much wrong it's hard to know where to begin. Year after year we hemorrhage more and more cash into a national health service that isn't, which is to say it isn't a national health service. Free at the point of delivery is all very well, but it means nothing if you can't get yourself to that point of delivery while you've still got a pulse. Quite simply, the sacred cow cum white elephant that is or has been the NHS is demonstrably incapable of doing the job intended for it. Infuriatingly, politicians of every stripe insist on calling it our NHS, as though it were a beloved family member, but it's not. That use of our is simply to deter us from ever criticising it. Waiting lists grow ever longer. Sick and injured people wait in agony and desperation for ambulances that don't come, or not for many hours. We're actually told not to bother the NHS, to do all we can to avoid needing the service we pay for. And so trusting people obey, suffering in silence in their homes, not reporting their health concerns to their GPs, the lumps, the stubborn coughs, the blood, putting off the call for help that might save their lives until it's too late. But the NHS is only one part, admittedly a hugely expensive part, of this land of make-believe. We're no longer policed by consent. Rather, the police force, and it is a force now in lieu of a service, has been bent around political or ideological will. Some protest groups are deemed good. Just Stop Oil, Extinction Rebellion, Insulate Britain, Black Lives Matter, and fed tea and biscuits while they block the roads and smash windows, protected from any and all opposing views. Others espousing opinions that fly in the face of the latest ideological kink or political diktat. Protests about so-called vaccines or about lockdowns or illegal immigration often prompt the unleashing of the men on horseback, the riot shields. Crimes without violence are effectively decriminalised now. Blind eyes and deaf ears are turned to burglary, to break-ins to cars, to broad daylight theft from shops and businesses and the like. Under-resourced and overworked forces haven't the capacity for investigating any but the most appalling crimes. Even then it's a lottery in which most of the tickets are losers. A woman has something like a 1 in 77 chance of seeing her rapist convicted. It's increasingly true to say that crime has no consequences in this country. Help yourself, do what you feel like. And if you do have the astonishing bad luck to actually get arrested, why not just self-identify as innocent? The safest line to take if you want to get on in this Potemkin village of ours is that men are women if they say they are. Almost without exception, our most senior politicians are unable, or at least absolutely unwilling, to say what a woman actually is. If we're not safe to say that a woman is an adult human female, what kind of reality are we living in anyway? Even some of the shapes moving around in our Potemkin village are just characters in borrowed costumes. The Palace of Westminster is yet another fake structure within the Potemkin village, a facade with nothing of meaningful substance behind it. Parliament's a joke, pure and simple. Bad enough that for generations the House of Commons has been dominated and therefore utterly compromised by the party system. Now those parties might as well be one. Vote Conservative, vote Labour, vote Liberal, it makes no difference. There is but one ideology now, the ideology of control, of telling us, the little people, when to jump and how high. Everywhere you look, truth has been replaced by falsehood, fakery and lies, fake news for a fake village. Mountains of data reveal that the products marketed as vaccines are no such thing. They don't stop infection, they don't stop transmission, they don't stop an infected person getting sick, they don't keep an infected person out of hospital, and they don't stop an infected person dying. By any measure, those products released under emergency use authorisation and demonstrably the cause of countless deaths and injuries are at best a facade, a front, an optical illusion intended to make the masses move in the direction desired by the leaders. Whatever way you cut it, those products don't work as advertised, and yet still the advertising/propaganda campaigns are up and running, right now this very minute, pushing needles into as many arms as possible, including those of healthy 6-month-old babies. Talking heads still trumpet the nonsense that the vaccine rollout was an unqualified success. Stuffed shirts that stood at the forefront of the pandemic, pushing the medical products, pushing the lockdowns, pushing the face masks, were honoured for their efforts then and remain honoured now, even as the data makes it increasingly plain, to me at least, that what was inflicted upon our population was an unforgivable wrong. Fake knights of the realm for our Potemkin Village. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, elected by none of us and therefore a fake Prime Minister, has promised to halt the flow of illegal migrants onto British shores. But I say he'll do no such thing. In fact, I say he doesn't even have any intention of stopping that flow. Any and every British government promises to protect our borders. This is now a fake promise with nothing behind it. Our landscapes are littered with wind turbines, and yet millions can barely afford to heat their homes because one way or another we aren't allowed access to the most obvious and reliable sources of energy. Drax power station used to burn coal. Now it burns wood pellets obtained by cutting down ancient forests in Canada that campaigners there say are vital for fighting climate change. By banning coal and burning ancient forests, Drax is considered green, and so in recent years has received £6 billion in government subsidies. Drax now emits more greenhouse gases than when it burned coal. Drax might be held up as the epitome of the fakery of the misnamed green agenda. The green agenda is not about green, rather it's about greed. There's even fake meat and fake milk and fake cheese and scores of other fake products besides. What else would you serve in a Potemkin village after all but fake food? Most of the media is pushing the fake agenda entirely appropriate in a Potemkin village. As we speak, they're ramping up the same old fear about COVID, that illness with the threat risk now to most of the common cold, the same determination to ignore everything we've learned over the last 3 years. Actors on stage wear masks, and so must we. While more and more of the population wakes up to the lies, obfuscation, fear porn and propaganda around the so-called vaccines, around the green agenda, around gender politics and race politics, the majority of the news media obediently pumps out the same old tosh about safe and effective and climate crisis and preferred pronouns and race baiting. But the fakery has been swiftly and shoddily constructed without the foundation of truth. For that reason, this Potemkin village thrown up around us is flimsy and should be easily demolished if we wish it so. Underneath it all, too quiet for too long, we know the truth of Britain. More of us comprehend every day that beyond a shadow of a doubt our leaders have tried to hoodwink us into believing things that are simply not true. The ultimate Potemkin village is all lies, no truth. The eye-wateringly expensive NHS, costs rising year on year, is no longer a health service for all in any way that matters. I say the green agenda is a fraud, as is the climate crisis that underpins it. The assertion that little boys can grow up to be women and that little girls can grow up to be men are lies. That our government means to protect our borders is a fiction. A parliament in which overmighty, colluding, indistinguishable political parties dictate the law to the people, whether those people like it or not, is a shameful setting aside of the sovereignty of we the people of this country. Parliament is not and was never meant to be sovereign. We the people are sovereign. This is the foundation stone of Magna Carta, sealed in 1215 and as unshakably solid now as it was then. Any attempt to reduce the rights, freedoms and liberties enshrined in that treaty are, by definition, beyond the power of any parliament. Here's the thing. Our sovereignty as people was sealed by that treaty of 1215. Parliaments have come and tried to ride roughshod over the people again and again, and those parliaments have gone. One of many attempts to repeal Magna Carta was even made in 1969, while the general public were conveniently distracted by the moon landings. I've said it before and I'll say it again. We see them. We see the fakery that they have raised around us. But our rights are real. Our belief in Britain is real. Isn't it time to see past the shaky stage set thrown up around us as a distraction and to take shelter instead in true Britain, real Britain?